Today is Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. It's 7:15, and this is the Sherman monthly meeting. Thank you everybody who came to the event, as well as all the folks. We usually have a bunch of people on Zoom. Bob, what do we have right now?
40.
40? That's not that many. Okay, so hopefully more will be joining us. There is a Dodger game on, so we'll hopefully, we'll keep you guys posted. Right now it's 4-0 Dodgers.
Okay, some of us are recording the game, so let's not do any more updates.
Okay, no more updates. Sorry. All right. Andrew, you want to come up here? So we had a great restaurant of the month. Sweet Butter is in. So Sweet Butter has been around in Sherman Oaks for 15 years. And did you guys love it?
Yeah.
So Andrew, tell us about Sweet Butter.
It is working. All right, so my mom started Sweet Butter 15 years ago. I grew up in Sherman Oaks, right up the street from Sweet Butter, and she saw, as Jane wrote in the newsletter, a vacant building, and hated seeing a vacant building, and she always was so busy, and my sister and I were off to college, and she opened Sweet Butter, not expecting it to, I think, grow into what it is now. She passed away 8 years ago, and I fell in unexpectedly to running the restaurant, and I love it so much. I live in the home that I grew up in and walk down the street to work, and it's so her there. It's like very much her, so having that is super special. I have a 3-year-old boy too, and him being able to go to Sweet Butter every day and just experience something that my mom created is so special. And also kind of knowing so many people in our neighborhood is so special for me because I grew up there and have lived there for so long and have never felt such a part of the community as I have really running the restaurant. So that's special. So happy to give you guys food.
So for those of you who did not know his mom, she was a great lady. She was a caterer before.
She was.
But when you would go into Sweet Butter, she was always there. She lived there, as you do now.
Yep.
And she always loved to talk to people. So when you guys go in there, say hello to Andrew. He's not quite the charm that your mom was, but no. Yeah. Thank you very much for coming.
Of course.
All right. Also, I want to give a special thanks to Jane, my wife, Jane. Jane is our new restaurant chairperson since Jules has passed the baton to Jane, so thank you very much. And she's got a very special restaurant coming next month, which I'm not going to tell anybody yet. You'll have to read it about the newsletter. So can I get the board of directors up here to introduce themselves? And after that, we're going to have, Laura, did you want to come up before? Where are you? Did you want to come up after our board? Or I actually had you down lower in the agenda, but did you want to come up after? You want to wait? Okay, cool. Okay.
Is it on? So, Maria Calvin, I'm the chair of the Legislative Committee in Housing and co-vice president.
Hi, I'm Bob Anderson, and I'm the other vice president after Maria, and I'm chair of the Transportation Committee, and the Metro's doesn't like me. Fan club. So that's good.
Hi, I'm Jay Weitzler. I'm not a vice president of anything, but I am secretary. I'm also the liaison to the Buckley Group, to the Hillside Federation, and I'm the head of the airport committee.
Hi, I'm Larry Slade. I'm leading our response to the homelessness problem in LA. One quick question I want to ask you all, I asked about 6 months ago. Have you seen any improvement in the homelessness problem in Sherman Oaks? No. I really, no improvement at all? There hasn't been any?
There's more.
There's more to be done. Have you seen any improvement? Have you seen any improvement in Sherman Oaks and the homelessness problem?
It's worse.
I've seen some census appear here and there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's a loaded question. Just leave it there. Thanks. So we also have a couple of the board members who are not here yet or not coming up, I don't know. But with the board, the folks that just introduced themselves, Sherman Oaks would not be Sherman Oaks without these guys. They work their butts off. They work really, really on their different committee. Mariana, you want to come on up here? And then the different elected and if you guys want to come on up, the representatives from the different offices. Mariana's senior lead officer, Jose Saldana. There's Tom Glick, another one of our board members. Say hello, Tom. All right. Go ahead.
Testing, testing. Good evening, everyone. I am Mariana Romo, and I'm one of the senior lead officers for the northern part of Sherman Oaks. My partner, So I'm not the president or the vice president, but I do have stars. And I like to say that I'm the star of the northern part of Sherman Oaks. My partner, Austin Saldana, is not here today, but he covers the southern part of Ventura Boulevard, the southern part of Sherman Oaks. First of all, go Dodgers. Let's hear it. I know some of you guys have maybe heard on the Citizens app or the Nextdoor app regarding the officer that was in the car accident earlier on Hazeltine and Chandler area. We did have how it started was officers were following a vehicle that was cold-plated, meaning that the license plate did not belong to the vehicle, so possibly stolen. Officer requested a backup, officers came to assist, and during that duration, another vehicle collided into another vehicle that was driving in the area. The officer is okay, but he was transported to the hospital. So we are asking for, positive lives for this officer. Thank you guys. Regarding crime-wise, I am seeing an uptick of, and this is not a new term, but I am seeing it more often here in the Sherman Oaks area called bank jugging. We recently had an incident at the Bank of America on Woodman and Riverside. Business owner from the area was trying to deposit cash to the Bank of America. And these individuals, we don't know if she was followed or she was just targeted because of what she was carrying. She was carrying a backpack, and they actually took about maybe $13,000, $14,000 from her. She was leaving from her business to the Bank of America. So just a reminder, please, do not go to your banks carrying an envelope, carrying a backpack, anything that will target you. These individuals know, they see that you're carrying the envelope, they see that you're carrying something, so that makes you a soft target. If you are going to deposit a large number of cash, maybe try to go to the bank in different days of the days of the week. Do not make it a routine. Go with a friend, maybe hide the envelope somewhere. That way these individuals do not pick you as your next target. So just be very vigilant. They are targeting Bank of America and Wells Fargo, so the big banks. They're not really targeting the smaller banks, so please just be vigilant if you are carrying a high quantity of cash with you. Okay?
Thank you.
So, this Sunday, October 20th, who knows what's happening in Sherman Oaks? The Sherman Oaks Street Fair. We are closing Ventura Boulevard from Van Nuys to Kester. It's almost a mile long each way, both ways. So we have more vendors than ever this year. We have all the community stage with all the kids performing. On the main stage, we have contestants from American Idol and America's Got Talent and a couple of other big shows like The Voice. Some of the winners are going to be performing, so there's going to be a lot happening that day, a lot of food, so please come and join us. It's going to be a beautiful day, not hot like it was last year. And then on top of that, we have our foundation. The Sherman Oaks Chamber of Commerce has our foundation, which does all the utility boxes around town. And we're having a contest right now where we're asking kids to submit a drawing, and in each different age group, there'll be a winner, and those drawings will then be replicated by an artist onto the utility boxes. So if you want to come and do that, it's a $20 donation in order to enter. Thank you very much. See you Sunday.
And again, for those of you folks at home, as well as the folks here, please come to the street fair. It's a lot of fun. It's supporting the chamber and a lot of the businesses in the area, so it's a lot of fun.
And the schools.
And the schools, absolutely. The profits go to the schools, correct?
No.
Or some of the proceeds? All the proceeds go to the schools?
No, that was back in the day when they helped.
Oh, never mind. But definitely come to the event. It's a lot of fun, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It actually just supports the businesses in Sherman Oaks.
Okay, go. You're taking his time now. Thank you, Tammy.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, everybody. I'm Sean from Brad Sherman's office. Most of you know me right now. I know most of you already. I could talk forever and ever and ever about all the great things that we've done in government, but we have a limit. Matt's shaking his head, and I will let my boss do that at our next telephone town hall, which I'm told will be next month in November. We don't have a date just yet, but I believe it's going to be, don't quote me on this, it's probably going to be between Thanksgiving, Election Day and Thanksgiving. So we will have it soon. And beyond that, we will also be having a booth at the street fair. I'll be there all day. Come up, say thank you. Thank you. Come up, say hi. I'm happy to talk with you guys about all the things that I can't get into right now because, to be honest, I'm just as eager to get to this debate as everybody else. So, that being said, thanks. I'll pass it on to my colleagues here.
Hey everyone, my name is Myrna Escobar, and today I'm not here as a field deputy, but as a community member to encourage you to vote yes on G.
Hold on. You're speaking as we're not doing your opinion or, no. Thank you, yeah. Pass the mic, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Talene Crogley. I'm here representing Councilmember Napier Rahman's office, CD4. I wanted to join you all tonight to give a few community updates from CD4. First off, as Tammy and Sean mentioned, this upcoming Sunday there will be the Sherman Oaks Street Fair hosted by the Sherman Oaks Encino Chamber of Commerce. There will be lots of vendors, lots of staff from elected officials' office and elected officials. Lots of constituents, and it'll be lots of fun. We'll be able to support new businesses and existing businesses in Sherman Oaks and just show up for our community and gather together. So I implore you all to join. We'll have a booth there as well. I think it'll be lots of fun. Second, for Halloween, we're partnering with the Buckley School on some street closures. So there will be a trick-or-treating opportunity by Stansbury Avenue this Halloween. I'll be hosting a booth there on behalf of our office, answering some constituent questions and getting to know constituents. So again, if you're looking for a trick-or-treating opportunity for you or your kids, definitely come on by Stansbury Street. I've heard it's going to be lots of fun and there will be lots of candy. Next, I wanted to share that this past weekend, our office joined the BSNO concert in the park, and there was a Taylor Swift cover band, a Bruno Mars cover band. It was so much fun, lots of constituents, and we're really looking forward to working together with the Valley Cultural Center and hosting more of these events. It seems like the community really likes them, and I like them myself. And finally, I wanted to mention again, I mentioned this in previous meetings, but since I am new to being the Sherman Oaks Field Deputy, I really would love to get to know each and every single one of you. So I will leave some of my business cards again at the back table. Please email me, whether it's just a conversation, hearing your feedback over email, or whether we can grab coffee or have a Zoom meeting. I'd love to hear your feedback and get to know you all personally. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So you guys, if you have issues, we now have a field deputy, okay? She's very responsive, so definitely take her card. It's great that we have a field deputy. We had a vacancy for quite a few months. So if you have issues in Sherman Oaks and you need to discuss, we've got a person now. So she's very responsive, so we're happy. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, my name is Lisa Tersha, and I'm the CFO at the Buckley School, and we are here once a year. Thank you, Matt and Jay, my liaison, to give an update on our compliance with our CUP. We opened the year with 829 students, which is full compliance with our CUP, which is 830 students. We have a requirement to be at 26% busing. We're at 44% busing. And let's see. We have interior renovations going on in our lower school building, which will be completed by the spring. There's been no community issues or complaints that have been called to the school. If there are any, please let us know. I'm available. We're sponsoring, as we heard, the co-sponsorship of the Stansbury closure. Our fall play this year on November 6th is Something Rotten. We'd love to see you out there. Please let me know if I can reserve a seat for you. There'll be dinner before. I don't know if it'll be as great as this dinner, but there'll be some food before. If you want any minutes from any prior meetings, Jay is in attendance, but happy to make those available for you. We have a meeting with the community reps on November 12th. SOHA is there, song, and the field office. And we will report back to you through Jay and any issues that come up, if there's anything you want me to bring up at that meeting. And also we'll be having a booth at the Sherman Oaks Street Fair. We're very excited about that, and some of our kids will be performing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. And, okay, and Buckley School has always been very, very supportive of our organization with our beautification. And next month, hopefully, I'm going to have introduce our two new chairs of our beautification committee. We've been meeting with them, and they've got some good plans coming, and hopefully you'll get your students to help us. We're going to be introducing some more tree planting in Sherman Oaks, so we'll hopefully give you an update next month on that. Is Paul Edelman here? Okay. So Paul is, he chairs the Mountains Conservancy. He was supposed to give a quick report, but that'll move our meeting along. Laura, you want to come on up? Okay, we have Assembly Member Laura Friedman, who has a 1-minute message that she's going to be speaking for a few minutes about what she's been doing. You want it wherever you want.
It's nice, like an interview show.
How you been? Tell us what you've been doing.
Well, hi everyone. It's great to see you. I'm Laura Friedman. I am for the next month your representative in the State Assembly. And I wanted to come here tonight to just give you a brief update about my legislative year on your behalf. So we had actually a big legislative package this last year, and we had 12 bills signed into law, which I'm very proud of. I'm going to tell you about just a few of them this evening. I do want to comment that I'm actually very proud that most of these bills, I think all of the bills I'm going to tell you about had bipartisan support, and many of them were unanimously supported through their time in the legislature. And I think that they're all meaningful. So I'd love to just give you a quick thumbnail of some of these bills. AB 761 is pretty easy. It's about very large infrastructure projects and just realigning the timing of those projects to make it to where California can compete with new federal money that's now being offered through the Build Back Better program. So not very controversial, but something that for some of the LA Metro projects are going to be very significant because it means us being able to access potentially multi-millions of dollars for infrastructure projects in Los Angeles, mostly for transportation and transit projects. AB 810 has to do with some of the stories you may have heard about in the news, these awful stories of athletic coaches in our university system committing really bad, egregious sexual harassment and abuse of students. Well, I have a ledge aide who was a student athlete who actually was part of the varsity blues scandal when that happened, who's been very concerned about college athletes and kind of their vulnerability being college students. And what this bill does is for the first time it will require background checks from one university to the next for all incoming tenure track faculty and athletic coaches, but also that if there has been a sustained allegation of harassment or retaliation against a coach or anybody or any tenured professor, that must be reported to the next university. Because what happens now is there's, let's say, a harassment issue. A coach sleeps with an underage student, for instance. The school finds out about it, and what's happened in the past, we know from a lot of evidence, is that a school will say, listen, just quit. We don't have to do anything about it, just move on. The coach moves on to the next school, the same thing happens again. And there's been report after report of this happening. No longer. Now it's going to be their responsibility to actually investigate, and if it's sustained, and if they say this actually happened, that must be reported to the next school. So very proud of that, again, unanimously supported throughout in the legislature. AB 1868 This is the second bill that I have done with Habitat for Humanity, a group that some of you may know. This is about creating for-sale affordable housing for low-income and working people. And what this bill does is it changes the way that assessments are done in some of our counties to make it to where it's easier to build affordable, for a nonprofit to build affordable housing that's targeting low-income working people, the way that Habitat for Humanity does. So I won't go into how it works, but let's just say non-controversial, I have Republican co-authors, and it'll be really meaningful to get more of this kind of for-sale project out there, because by having people who are working people, even if they're lower moderate income, be able to own a home, it gives them a stability that is really important and helps them get out of poverty. And there's a lot of evidence to show that. So very proud of the work I've done around that. AB 1889, for those of you like me who are wildlife lovers, we call this the Room to Roam Act. This is a bill that simply says that as municipalities do their general plans, that if they are impacting areas that are open space areas or know that they have migratory animals, they should plan for how those animals will pass through their cities and their developments. This is to help prevent the kind of the deaths that we see of our mountain lions on our highways, the collisions that we have between deer and motorists in a lot of parts of the state, which is really deadly to humans. And, you know, I've represented locking out of Front Ridge and La Crescenta, an area where we have frequent airlifting of bears out of people's, backyards. This is so that cities will plan so that that kind of thing doesn't happen. Had a Republican principal co-author who said, I am sick of having my constituents hit deer and get seriously injured or killed, and this will make a difference as we plan for more development. I'm going fast, right? Okay. AB 1963, do any of you know what paraquat is? It's a pesticide that's banned in 66 countries. It's linked very strongly to Parkinson's disease. I've worked with the Michael J. Fox Foundation and Dolores Huerta on this bill to have the Department of Pesticide Regulation do an immediate review of paraquat to see whether or not we should still be using it here in California. AB 2297 modernizes the Hospital Fair Pricing Act. Do you know that we still have we have a lot of medical bankruptcies still in California. Did you know that in California, we also put liens on people's homes, low-income people's homes and seniors' homes when they can't pay their medical bills? This will stop that practice. I'm going really fast now. I will just say AB 2875 has California push back on a recent Supreme Court decision called the SACA decision that removed wetlands from the EPA's control and threatens tens of thousands of acres of precious wetlands across the United States. This now enshrines in California law that we will not lose our precious wetlands here in California. Lastly, the last bill I want to talk about, AB 2925, has to do with the campus climate issue around the Gaza, Palestine, Israel conflict primarily. But it has to do with the fact that we have seen rising anti-Semitism in our college campuses. And when I've had college professors come to me and say, I support the state of Israel's right to exist, I am a Zionist, and I'm afraid I'm going to get fired over this. And when I've gone to my school about it, there's been no one who's competent to understand what's anti-Semitic and what's not on college campuses. All this bill does, and I think it's going to be very meaningful, is say that if you have a DEI or anti-hate training on a college campus in California, you must include, you can teach whatever you want, you can include as many groups as you want, but you must also include the groups that are receiving the top 5 most hate crimes and discrimination in California. That is tracked by the AG in California, and there's been no requirement for schools to teach that. The end result is that only about 15% of DEI programs include training on anti-Semitism. So we do not have people who are culturally competent on our college campuses to recognize when anti-Semitic events happen on our campuses and respond to them. This will make sure that no groups are left out, so that if you're going to have anti-hatred training, make sure you include the groups that are actually experiencing the most hatred and discrimination. To me, it makes common sense. This was a priority for the California Legislative Jewish Caucus, of which I am a member. Very proud that that sailed through the legislature and is now law. Last thing I'll just say, was also able to secure $9 million in 2022 for Griffith Park safety improvements for traffic circulation. This year, almost $1 million for the Discovery Cube and Hanson Dam, for their new LA STEM Walk and Ride Trail project for the kids of the Valley, $600,000 for the RV buyback and disposal program to get these dilapidated RVs off our streets. And lastly, we are very happy to have worked with Caltrans to get additional striping and signage for the 101 South at Van Nuys to more clearly mark the right carpool lane entrance, and also to have gotten grates to cover the wash entrance to the LA River under the 101 and Hortense and Tyrone Tunnel to prevent people from passing through and living in that tunnel. And I just want to lastly say, this is my last time addressing you as an assembly member, because as you know, I'm not running for re-election to the assembly, I'm running for a different office. But you have all been a pleasure to work with and partner with. Thank you for the warm welcome you have given Diane and Sebastian in my office, and for just being great thought partners, and for everything you do for the community. It truly has been a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm not going far, I'll still be in Glendale. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time in Sacramento. You've been a great leader. You've been very easy to reach and very supportive of Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. So we look forward to not losing you. And also, you can come to our toy drive, which Jules runs every year.
Love it.
Yep. So that's Sunday for you guys also at home and here. Sunday, December 8th is the toy drive at Gelson's. It's a lot of fun, and that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, so now, Phil Sherman, you want to come on up? And I'm passing the baton over to Phil Sherman, who's also been a great friend of Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, has been the moderator of many of our debates, and he's going to be taking charge now, and he's going to be moderating the Assembly District candidates. I'll let him do the introductions as soon as he gets his cup full. And Phil, if you need some more, just let me know.
Thanks, everybody. That was a great presentation, because when I was talking with someone about what I was going to be doing tonight, someone said, "What's the assembly?" Which may be funny to you, but probably every one of your kids or grandchildren would ask the exact same question, because they have no clue what the state legislators do. So that was great to hear that from Laura, and we'll hear from our two candidates tonight. The Valley's 44th Assembly District, voters will choose from between Nick Schultz and Tony Rodriguez. Gentlemen, you want to come on up? And you know our format here, generally we do an opening statement, and then questions, and then we'll wrap things up, and we hope to get out of here before midnight, right, Bob? Hi, nice to meet you. How you doing? Thanks for coming. So, take a seat. So should we jump right into it? All right, and by the way, if anybody has any questions, we only have a few, so grab one of those blue pieces of paper that you might see floating around and jot a question down. The more concise, the better. We're gonna have everybody introduce themselves. I'm Phil Schumann. This is Tony. This is Nick. And we're going to start with opening statement, and we're going to go in alphabetical order. So which one is first? I think that would be the R before the S, right? So about 2 minutes, if you would, an opening statement, introduce yourself, and tell the folks a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
So my name is Tony Rodriguez, and I live in San Antonio. I was a 26-year Army veteran. I'm a grandfather, a husband, 44 years, and I have a son who's 40 years old. I am running because I think we need to bring a common sense approach to how we live. I'm tired of people making decisions for specific groups and organizations and not thinking about the whole. I'm also running because I think that there's such a divide that we need to come to terms. Some of the things Ms. Friedman said about working with the other side, we need to do a better job of that. We need to shake hands and do what's best for the community and not what's best for a certain particular group, right? We need to do what's best for 90% of the population and try not to damage, the smaller groups. And I'm just a blue collar guy. I'm running for common sense. I'm tired of no transparency, people not telling us where the money's going, what they're doing with it, raising taxes, raising fees, under the auspices that we're helping other people when we're really not. We're helping only special interest groups. It's a grassroots campaign. Most of the money is my money. I'm only going to be beholden to the constituents, nobody else. I don't have to owe any unions, any major contractors, anything, because I am running for the people. I'm just, like I said, a blue-collar guy, 26-year Army veteran, who we need to bring some common sense, like we do in the military, and we need to accomplish a mission.
My turn, right? Okay. First of all, I just want to thank the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association for putting this together. Bill, thank you for moderating. Tony, it's nice to see you again, and I look forward to a good, spirited conversation. My name is Nick Schultz, and I currently serve as the mayor of the city of Burbank. I want to give you 2 minutes of a little bit about my story. I was raised by a single mom. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I've spent my entire career in public service. I currently, outside of being mayor of Burbank, which is a part-time job, I represent all of you in the courtroom every day. I work as a Deputy Attorney General at the California Department of Justice. I'm proud to say that I was hired by who I very much hope will be our next president, Kamala Harris, when she was Attorney General of California. Thank you. Give it up for her. She's fantastic. And what I do every day is I prosecute public corruption, human trafficking, labor trafficking, white-collar crime. I am out there trying to defend those who are victimized by those with incredible power and influence in our society, and I've spent my entire career representing the people. And in 2020, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when my community of Burbank was suffering in the throes of the pandemic, business was shut down, I raised my hand and I said, I want to serve my community. I am proud to say that 4 years later, we have a safe community and we are tackling some of the biggest issues. We have violent crime down. We have homelessness down 6%. Our local economy is reopened. And I'll wrap with this. The thing I'm probably most proudest of is the fact that I'm a dad to 2 incredible kids, Ella, age 3, and Aiden, who's going to be 2 next week. I worry about the California that they're going to inherit, where they're going to work, where they're going to live, what the climate's going to look like. And that's why I'm running. Because I have to do everything in my power to ensure that my 2 kids and all of our kids, nieces, nephews, grandkids, have a California where they can thrive and where they can be successful. I'm proud to be the Democratic nominee for this seat, and I very much hope to earn your vote. Thank you so much.
All right, let's get into some questions. And just remind the candidates, it's a minute and a half for the answer, and then they can respond.
Yeah. Rebuttal's a minute.
Rebuttal's a minute. You know, within reasons. Can we go with first names? Sure. Is that all right? So Tony, let me start with you. At this point in your career, in your life, you're doing something totally brand new. What motivated you to make this decision? I know you said a little bit about that in your opening statement, but
you know, I've always been a community volunteer advocate, and I've been cleaning up beaches and all that stuff. But what got me really motivated to do it is, I know all of you heard about what's going on in Glendale and the San Fernando Valley with our schools, some of the things that were being taught in schools. I didn't believe it until I started looking into some research, and I spoke at a school board meeting, a few of them actually, to talk about certain books that are being taught to kids. Right? And that was my big motivation. I found out that these things were really happening in our schools. Maybe not in all schools, but it's happening in Glendale, it's happening in LAUSD, it's happening in Rolling Heights. You know, so I can't speak for all the school districts.
Do we know what he's referring to, or do we need to be more specific? I don't think people know exactly what you're referring to.
I'm going to give you an example of a book. It's called The Lawn Boys. It's in the school libraries and elementary schools for kids 8 years and under. Right? That book is very explicit. I don't think kids should be exposed to that kind of nonsense, in my opinion. Right? We can all disagree on that, but I don't think kids need to know that. We need to allow kids to be kids. And when I saw that book, I thought of my 2 grandchildren. And that's really the most important thing in my life, those 2 girls. I don't want them exposed to anything outside of math, English, and science when they go to school.
What was the name of the book again?
The Lawn Boys.
The Lawn Boys.
Lawn Boys.
And it was about?
2 boys, sexually explicit,
It's about gay sex?
Oral sex.
Okay.
Oral sex. So it's not that I'm against LGBTQT, I'm just against being taught to an 8-year-old child.
So that motivated you to get more involved in the process?
And after speaking in Greenville and other unified, had some people approach me to consider running. I didn't want to run, I just want to help the kids, but I realized that I need to do something else. You know, I served 26 years in the Army, what's another 4 or 5 years serving the community again? So.
Could do 12.
No, I'll tell you what, I'll do 8, and that's it. I'm not.
So 12 years is the limit in the California legislature between the Assembly and the Senate. So, you know, you're looking at making an important decision here because it may be a representative for the next 12 years if they do a good job. So let me ask you the same question. I mean, relatively new to the political world.
Yes.
With the Burbank City Council and the mayor's office. 4 years ago, what motivated you to get into the political arena?
It has to start with my career in the courtroom. So I've spent my entire career prosecuting hardened organized criminals. And what I noticed through that entire experience is that the distinction between those who commit crime and those who are the victims of crime, oftentimes there's very little separating them. We are often products of our own circumstance. I see a lot of pain and misery in my community. Those who are dealing with housing instability, food insecurity, lack of access to a good quality public education, lack of access to health care. And as much as I felt that I was doing something to fight for the rights of victims, we weren't solving a problem. We're reacting to crime. Locking people up isn't an answer. You want to drive down crime rates, folks, you invest in our human capital, you invest in our people. That's what motivated me to run for city council in 2020. That's why I'm running now. When you bet on people, when you give them a great shot in life, and by the way, I'm just going to mention this, I'm a proud product of public education, kindergarten through law school. Our public schools are the gems, and I believe in investing in our public school system, not going to a voucher system, not taking money away from our public schools. I believe that when you invest in our children, incredible things are possible. So I got a lot of skin in the game. I worry very much about the future that California is going to be for our kids, and I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that they have a fantastic future, all of our children.
Tony, what can you tell us about what you know about Sherman Oaks and what some of the issues are that are most important to these people?
Well, one of the things I've learned through the campaign, and I'm new to the political world also, you got the same kind of issues we have everywhere in LA. We have homeless issues, we have crime issues, public safety issues. We have concerns on, you know, building these high-rise apartments and buildings to provide so-called affordable housing. And I say so-called because half the time it's not really affordable for the normal person. There's only certain percentages that are given to people for low income. So kind of the similar issues we have in Tahunga, right? I live in Tahunga because I like living in the mountains. Right? I don't want high-rise apartments in Tahunga. Right? There's plenty of open space that they can use, plenty of open government buildings that they can use to affect this homeless issue, to fix it, or at least put a dent in it for now. The other thing is, in order for us to fix anything like that, we've got to have full transparency. Right? It has to be an open book for us to know what's happening with the taxpayer money. And I think a lot of people in political office, since it's not their money, they don't manage it. Right? Think about this. I'm a firm believer that the government begins in our home. Mom and dad make all the decisions for the family. They know what they can spend and what they can't spend. So we need to have a similar approach from our leaders. They need to think about our money and how they're going to spend it and be transparent about it. Thank you.
Same question. What do I know about Sherman Oaks? What do you think some of the issues are here that you can impact?
Well, let me tell you what I love about Sherman Oaks, and it reminds me a lot of my community in Burbank. We all live in this large urban metropolis that is Los Angeles, and yet we've chosen to settle in the San Fernando Valley. It's a suburban community. It's the kind of place where you know your neighbor, where you send your kid to a good school. We have incredible parks. There's so incredible, vibrant small business corridors on the boulevard especially. Here's the point I'm trying to make. There is so many big city issues that we are facing, and yet we're so strapped for resources. We have an affordable housing crisis. Homelessness has, generally speaking, been through the roof over the course of the last decades. The climate crisis is here. It is impacting us daily. We could talk for an hour about insurance alone. The point I'm trying to make is all of these issues that I am talking about, These are the daily things that I live with, that my neighbors are experiencing. I think to your opening salvo about what is the state assembly and why people should care, there is so much potential in the state legislature to do good things for our community, for Sherman Oaks specifically. We can support our small businesses, we can add thoughtful and intelligent infill housing in places that make sense, that complement our community. We can save our entertainment industry. There's so much that we can do that matters not only to Sherman Oaks, but every community in this district. And I'm excited to get to work for all of you.
All right, a question for Nick from one of the members here. I'd like to vote for you, but I'm concerned about you accepting Laura Friedman's endorsement. We have been stuck with her, quote, progressive extremism in Studio City. This is the question wording. She's extremely anti-single family housing as well as anti-car. So in order to vote for you, I would need to have to know that you're more moderate. Otherwise, I would vote for your opponent. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I definitely have thoughts. Thank you. First of all, Laura Friedman has been a friend and a mentor, and I would be honored to follow in her footsteps in the Assembly. And I thank her for her service. Now look, like all of my endorsers, I can't tell you that Laura and I are going to agree on every issue. We have differences of perspective and opinion. All I can offer is the truth of what I am, who I am, what I believe in fighting for. But I will say this. I believe that right now, to a point that you made earlier, Tom, we're so divided in this state. These are not mutually exclusive goals. Okay. We want to add housing. We have to add housing. We're down 1 million units across the state. And we want to do it in a way that doesn't completely upend and eradicate our identity. You want Sherman Oaks to look like Sherman Oaks, then there's a way to do that. I'll give you one concrete example. We should be steering the development of housing to vacant and underutilized commercial parcels that are very much in this district. We have, just in Burbank as one example, we are home to North America's largest IKEA. About 8-9 years ago, they moved from their prior site. That site still sits vacant to this day. We can add hundreds of units of affordable housing, preferably that missing middle income, home ownership opportunities. You can do that. It's walkable to transit, it's walkable to jobs, and it doesn't eliminate single-family homes. It doesn't eradicate the sensibility and the feel of our neighborhoods. We can do all of that. So I'm proud to have Laura's endorsement. But I'm running as my own guy. I have my own thoughts, and I'm going to bring my experience from local government and balancing budgets to Sacramento.
While we're on the endorsement question, one person wanted to know if you're endorsed by the Democratic Socialists.
I am not endorsed by the Democratic Socialist. DSA is the term.
Okay. Tony, a question from one of the attendees here. You say you're a pragmatist and can work with others to reach legislative decisions for everyone, yet the leader of your party is called Democrats evil vermin and the enemy from within. We don't have to know all the details about the divisive comments that former President Trump has made, but how do you say that you can work with everyone when the leader of your party has comments to make like that?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not concerned what the leader of the party says. My concern is my district, California. That's all I really care about. What he does, what he says, I don't take that personally. I don't let it affect me because my job is going to be to take care of the 14 cities in my district, not the whole country. I'm not making excuses for him, but that's not my job. As a state assembly person, my job is to take care of Sherman Oaks, Summit Tahunga, Studio City, Burbank, Glendale, and all the cities that we have in our district. So when people say that, yeah, he makes some comments that sometimes make me go, oh my God. But for me, it's about us. It's not about them anymore. It's about us. And whether I win or lose, and Nick knows this, I'm going to stay fully engaged. I'm not going anywhere. Right? I have a job to do, and I'm going to protect my family, protect our children, our grandchildren. All I ask is that grandparents, aunts and uncles, get involved in protecting our kids.
So since we were talking about other electeds, several people wanted to know, and I know this is a personal decision, but it also is important information, if you would both be willing to share who you're going to be voting for the district attorney's race in Los Angeles County and why. Because crime, obviously, one of the key issues. Nick, would you like to go first on that?
Yeah, I'm often asked who I'm supporting for district attorney, and I have to tell you, I have not made any endorsements in that race. I've been asked to a lot. Here's why. At the California Department of Justice, I work for the Special Prosecution Section. My job, speaking of transparency and integrity, is to investigate and prosecute public officials. I have investigated and prosecuted police officers. I have investigated and prosecuted district attorneys. And for that matter, in consultation with my management, I have long felt that it would be a conflict of interest to weigh in on that race. What I can tell you, though, is I look at the two candidates in this race, and I still find myself wanting more. I see two very different visions for public safety, and yet what I believe the answer in terms of public safety is this. I don't believe that you can lock up the problem. I don't believe that you can make that go away. At the same point in time, people have a right to feel safe in their community and in their homes, and we are seeing property crimes up across the entire region. Here's my point. What I don't see either candidate talking about, really, to my satisfaction, is how you truly prevent crime in the first place. You want to prevent crime? Bet on people. Give them a safe place to sleep at night. Make sure they have access to food. Give them a good education. Make sure that they have a job. And right now, in the rhetoric of that campaign, I see a lot of divisiveness. I see a lot of rhetoric. I don't see solutions. So as a voter, I'm still watching and waiting for someone to say something to me that really moves me so I know which way I'm going to go.
Same question to you, sir.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that I'm supporting Hoffman for the office. And Nick has some points, but the real deal is what's happened since Gaston has been in office. Right? Crime has risen. He doesn't communicate well what he's doing or not doing, so perception is he's allowing all this crime to happen and not prosecuting people. And he needs to speak up, and that's one thing I don't like about the leaders that we have. They don't want to talk. They don't want to talk to the community. They don't want to tell us what's really happening. So we got to listen to social media, what we see on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, because they don't want to talk. One thing I do promise you this is something that Brad Sherman does. I will have a monthly town hall meeting with everybody. I want to know what's happening in my community. I want you to tell me what you want me to do. Because as a leader, that is my job. I spent 26 years in the Army. To be a leader in the Army, you got to listen to your troops. You got to listen to the people that are on the ground. And we can't fix anything without you. We can sit up here, Nick and I, and tell you we're going to solve every issue. We can't fix it without you. Right? You're the most important thing in this district, and we need you to support us. And when we're doing something wrong, you need to slap us across the head and remind us who we work for, because that's super important.
Well, we all thank you for your service. I thought the Army was more of a top-down organization, no?
It can be, but if you're a good leader, you're able to communicate with the top people.
Yeah. They want the collaboration.
Look, if you go into combat, the general's not the only one making a decision. Everybody's sitting around that round table making a decision on what we're going to do, how we're going to accomplish the mission, how we're going to take the hill. So we all have to communicate, and I think that's what lacks with us now in the country. We just don't talk, and I don't understand why we don't. We get caught up with the D and the R. Forget all that. Let's just talk. Be human.
Do you mind if I jump in, because I know it was a little off script. I just had a response to what you said, Tony. I actually disagree, but I think the thing is, we talk plenty in this country at each other. We don't listen. There's no ability to find common ground anymore. We'll talk at each other, we'll scream at each other, we'll repeat the same talking points, but where's the collaboration? Where's the problem solving together? I think that's what's missing in our democracy.
But that's the leader's fault, right? As a leader, if you don't hold your people accountable, they're never going to talk. And we don't do that because we point out Kamala's back, Trump is back. At some point we got to get over all that and actually talk and listen to each other. And as a leader, you need to lead the way, not necessarily you.
No, I get it. All right, so speaking of that, one of the key officials that represent these folks is Nithya Raman in her second term. She's been here many times. What are your thoughts on her performance, on the role of the city council person, who I presume you would have a lot of communication with? You want to start off?
Sure, I'll start off. First of all, look, I'm not a fan of anybody that's supported or endorsed by the DSA. So that's going to be an issue. But I will work with her, because
And what's the problem, what's the main issue with the DSA?
Well, there's a
From your
lot of,
perspective.
there's a lot of issues, but what I don't like is you have to co-govern with them, and I'm not about that noise. I don't want to co-govern with anybody except the people. I don't need to co-govern with special interest groups, especially that kind of special interest groups. I'm interested in what the community has to say to me, not what a specific group has to say to me. And then if I do something that they don't agree with, they're going to post some email all over the internet letting everybody know that I didn't follow their rules and they're chastising me online.
Okay.
The only people that should chastise me is the voters, that's it.
We covered a lot there. You want to repeat the question?
Yeah, your thoughts on the job the councilwoman is doing for this district.
So I've had a chance to work with Councilmember Rahman since she was elected in 2020. I can only speak from my experience in Burbank. We share Griffith Park, if you will, together. I have found her to be collaborative, responsive to my concerns when I've had to work with her. And she's been returned by the voters to another 4-year term. And so we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to set aside the rhetoric and the labeling and the name calling, and we're going to have to get things done. Because at the end of the day, and I get this is just a personal pet peeve of mine. I hate it when people call each other socialist, communist, Nazi, whatever. Knock it off. Because at the end of the day, you know what we're doing? We're not doing a damn thing to solve anything that matters to each and every one of you. This isn't about me. It's not about Tony. It's not about Nithya. It's about solving problems. It's about addressing the affordability crisis. It's about driving down the price of gas and food and everyday commodities. It's about added housing. Nithya Rahman and I may have different ideas on how to get there, but I know her heart's in it. I know that she's fighting to solve these problems. And so I will work with her, and I will work with anyone of any party, any side of the aisle, to find solutions for my community. And that's what you should all expect from me. And the last thing I'll say is this. I very much do want to co-govern with everybody. This is not a top-down structure. To Tony's point, I'll agree with him on one thing. We may be elected, we may have a vote in the Capitol, but we represent you. That means you need to hold us accountable. That means that when you have ideas for what we can do to improve your daily life, we need to listen to you, and that doesn't mean call us or you email us. We need to be in the community. We need to be here tonight having conversations with you. That is co-governing. And by the way, I will just mention, no, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a democratic socialist. I'm not endorsed by DSA, but you know what? They fight for a world where everyone has health care and everyone has housing. I don't think those are bad goals. We can all aspire to live in a better world like that.
So talking about leadership, Mayor Bass is quite proud of her Inside Safe program on homelessness. She's made this the top priority of her administration. You heard Larry Slade asking questions before. I mean, I would say this is probably one of the top issues, if not the top issue for this group. So what are your thoughts on Mayor Bass's efforts, the approach in general, and then more specifically, and I'm sure you've thought about this, what can an assemblyman do to impact that problem? You want to start, Tony?
Well, I mean, we got to start somewhere, number one, right? We have to start somewhere with the homeless issue. One of the things that I want to do at the assembly level is push to disband LAHSA, right? The Los Angeles Housing Authority. We need to disband them. They were created, I think, in the early 90s.
We can do that tomorrow.
As a necessity, right? As a necessity. But there was no plan. They just put it together. It was a reactive decision to put people in a position to help the homeless program. Well, they haven't done a good job since the 90s. Have not done a good job at all. There's no transparency with them. Those people that are on the board should not be on the board. To me, as far as I'm concerned, anybody that's going to be on the Los Angeles Housing Authority should be an elected official, so that if they don't do the job, we can get them out of the office quickly. Instead of, and I don't want to call it cronyism, but that's what it really is. If you know somebody, you'll get the job, and you just stay there forever and ever and ever, collecting thousands and thousands of dollars and not solving the problems. So back to Major Bass, she's trying her heart off to fix the problem. But I think Nick brought this up earlier. We used to be, I was in the National Guard station at the Glendale Armory in the mid-90s. We used to use that facility as a homeless facility, emergency facility. All the armories were being used for that. And slowly but carefully, the state of California started stopping that program. Right? We used to have cots in there, and we provided military security for people. Right? cheap, they're already getting paid, so they're not gonna get any extra money, and people had a place to get a shower, have some warm meals, and a place to sleep and feel safe. And we stopped all that. I don't know why it was stopped. I truly don't know. But I know that a couple of the armories that were shut down, they're still boarded up, not being used. Nick brought that up about places here in Glendale or in Burbank that are closed up and not being used for the homeless people. So there's things we can do, but we need transparency when we're doing these things. We need to know exactly why these buildings were closed down. It makes no sense to me, and the problem just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and now financially we don't have the money to solve all these issues. So I give her props for doing something more than anybody's done in LA in a long time.
So I know in your website you talk a lot about this issue, talk about how Burbank has reduced homelessness. So give us your thoughts on what you could do as an assemblyman in this area.
I think that an assembly member can do an awful lot. Let me tell you what I think we could do. And I'll start with not the abstract, not my thoughts, but I'm going to tell you what we have done from a lived experience. And by the way, this isn't a one-off anomaly. If you look at the last 3 years, Burbank saw a decline of 10%, followed by 5%, followed by the most recent 6% decline in our unhoused population. And we've done all that without a shelter. Now, before I tell you without a shelter, we actually don't have a homeless shelter in Burbank. And it'll be opening, I believe, middle of next year, and I think you're going to see that number increase even more than just 6%. But really quick, to directly answer your question, look, I will agree with Tony on one other narrow point. I applaud Mayor Bass for trying to tackle an issue that was decades in the making. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot of elected officials, in my opinion, were asleep at the wheel. It doesn't get that bad overnight.
Well, Eric Garcetti said he was going to solve homelessness there, is it? So this isn't the first mayor that's ever attacked the problem.
No, but I think that she's brought a new energy and a vigor in approaching it. But here's my constructive feedback or constructive criticism of Mayor Bass. You can spend a bunch of money to get folks off the street and into shelter, but that doesn't solve the underlying problem. People are homeless for a number of reasons. Some are dealing with years of untreated mental health or substance abuse or addiction. There are folks that are fleeing domestic violence. There are veterans that need connection with services. If you simply move the problem indoors without wraparound supportive services to address the underlying cause, you're spending a lot of money to move a problem, but you're not solving the problem.
Yes, everybody knows that.
Well, let me tell you what we've done now. So what we've done in Burbank is we looked at the data, and we found that 60% of those who are unhoused in our community lived in their vehicle. Why is that significant? If you go to someone who's living in their vehicle and say, hey, come to the shelter bed tonight, think about what you're asking them. They've been in that situation months or even years. Psychologically, you're asking them to leave the only safe place they've probably ever known. That's why they resist and refuse placement so often of the time. So what we did is we created a safe 24/7 accessible storage site where they could store their personal effects. They had access to showers. They had access to treatment and services. And what we saw is that was the first step towards getting them into a treatment program or getting them placed in a shelter site. And the success rate is fantastic, and we're spending a fraction of the money that LA City and County are to do that. So the last thing I'll say is this. I don't know that perspective is very much present in the legislature. We need people that can't just talk about homelessness abstractly, but have seen what has worked on the ground. And we can offer dollars and programming assistance from the state level to every jurisdiction to make sure that you're creating a custom plan. Because here's my last point on this. LA,
you can keep going.
Okay, I got time. LA can't just be creating all this infrastructure. There's unhoused in the Central Valley on the North Coast. If we're only creating infrastructure here, it's attracting a problem, right? Every community in California has to build their fair share of the infrastructure. That's when the state can lead, and that's where there's more work to do.
So just to continue on this, so what would Assemblyman Schultz do in this area?
Well, I got a few bill ideas, but I'll tell you one thing.
I mean, I think this is a subject you're interested in, right? Yeah.
So right now, let's say you're a small community. You're Wairika, California. You're Weed, California.
Well, what about Sherman Oaks?
Well,
I mean, the issue in Sherman Oaks is, the feeling is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the person who's camped out on the sidewalk or the encampment under the freeway seems to have more rights than the homeowner or the business owner. And the police department isn't really in a position to do anything about it, and neither is anyone else.
But they're not the right solution.
No, I'm just saying. So that traditionally you would think, law enforcement does its part if there's a crime, but the feeling among, and not just Sherman Oaks, but so many places, is that the homeless have more rights than the residents and the business owners. So that may or may not be fact, but that's the perception.
I think there's 3 or 4 things the state could do. Dollars, programming assistance, transparency, and I'll leave it at those 3 right there. First of all, this all costs money. And the reality is that the state has resources that they can tap into.
Yeah, money doesn't seem to be the issue.
Well, I will say it's not the issue, but there's also not the programming assistance to go with it. There are incredible ideas like what we're doing in Burbank, and the problem, the obstacle is getting that information exchanged with other communities that are just trying to start out. This is why I was talking about smaller cities on the North Coast. If you want to start tackling homelessness, if you want to develop your own strategy, right now there's no mechanism to share information. It's really the same problem that we have. If you have an unhoused person in Sherman Oaks who's contacted for services and then goes to Burbank, there's no mechanism, there's no portal to accurately share that information across.
That's what LASA does.
They attempt to do it, but at a statewide level, there's nothing. There's no infrastructure. So Assemblymember Schultz, that would be one of my first bills, creating an information exchange, creating programming assistance. And yes, we do need more transparency and accountability, and I'll wrap on this. Every assembly candidate, every Senate candidate, every congressional candidate is going to come before you and talk about all these great bills that they want to do. And they'll want to get 20 bills passed, that 10 go to the governor's desk, so that maybe 5 get signed. You know what the greatest power that the state legislature has? Oversight. We have the ability to hold public hearings on any issue, bring the heads of state departmental agencies before the legislature, and ask critical questions like, how the hell did the insurance crisis happen? Those are the kind of hearings that we should be having. That's the kind of oversight that we can do in the state capitol.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I do. I think, first of all, the transparency has to be there. But I think what's more important is, if we know something is working in Burbank, right, then Burbank should be sharing that information with the other cities in LA County, so that we at least can communicate here, right? We need to do a better job of that, because we're not communicating. LA doesn't know how great Burbank is, right, until you tell them. So it's super important that we communicate, and it goes back to that, having a conversation. If you have a program that's successful, and it truly is successful, then you shouldn't be afraid to share with the other cities in the community, especially your next door neighbors. You need to share that information so that we can copy what's working, and what's not working, let's throw it away. Talking about the homeless, he's right. We need a wraparound program, but you need actual people out there to do that. And we don't reach out to private organizations to help with anything. Everything we're going to solve is, let's just write a check. Let's write a check. Well, that doesn't solve anything, as we're finding out, right? Writing a check doesn't solve anything. Giving money doesn't solve anything. We need to get the community involved. All of us need to help with this program, with this problem that we have with the homeless people. And if we know somebody that's willing to help, there's philanthropists out there that'll help us. We just have to ask. We just need to ask. All they can say is no.
Mayor Bass has a program called LA for LA, which is doing that with philanthropists and grant-making organizations.
We need to copy that.
Yeah.
Everybody.
You want to talk about Prop 33 and 34? And a couple of questions about that. First of all, can anybody tell us what Prop 33 and 34 are? Because they're so good. Can you guys work on legislation to make propositions in California like clearer?
Well,
because everybody says that when you vote yes, you're actually voting no, and you vote no, you're actually voting yes, and the commercials are just trying to confuse us, right?
You know, I think Mr. Banta, who writes most of these, right, is a very eloquent writer, and we need to make sure that, and I don't want to say dumb it down, but at least make it simple so people understand what those propositions are, so they don't get confused.
Do you guys want to tackle 33 and 34? Who feels better about explaining what they are?
I am certainly not an expert, but Proposition 33 would be rolling back Costa-Hawkins and returning local control to matters of rent control. That's a very simple explanation. There's a bit more to it, but that's really the gist of it. Proposition 34 is a response to the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, essentially saying that if you're in the healthcare field, for example, you should be spending, I think it's 98% of your time
on programs.
Right, as opposed to another program.
So, do you have any thoughts on, are you allowed to comment on those in your position as a Deputy Attorney General.
Happy to weigh in, and I will mention, it's not Ron Bonta himself who writes it. He's got a great team in government law.
He sure does.
He does. Look, I'm not a fan of Prop 34 because it's a vindictive ballot measure. The problem with that is once we open that door, we're going to start seeing an awful lot more of that. We're going to see measures just like that going after and targeting specific organizations on all of our ballots moving forward. I don't think it serves any purpose. That's just my pick, but I will say, by the way, look at Ballotpedia, look at the League of Women Voters. There's a lot of great resources out there.
Yeah, that big, thick voters guide that we get in the mail is nonpartisan, unbiased, and pretty clear. What are your thoughts on 33, 34?
Well, I'm against, I want no on 33, right? I don't want it to fall into local government to decide rent control. One thing I do know is rent control doesn't really work. We're going to move homeowners out of business. They're not going to want to rent to anybody because we're going to be raising taxes on them. And what do you expect if you're going to raise taxes on property owners? Do you not think the cost has got to be passed on to somebody?
Right.
We don't do it with the restaurants with the minimum wage, right? We don't tell them you can't raise your prices, but we're going to tell people that own property that want to rent out, hey, you know what? You're going to have to suck it up and live on, right, if you want to own your property. So I say no on 33, and I'm no on 34. So.
Earlier, Assemblymember Friedman talked about one of the bills that they passed about making sure that anti-Semitism is taught as part of DEI programs. Do you think that's a good idea? And do you want to weigh in on what role, if any, a California Assembly might have, either symbolically or practically, in the Israeli-Gaza conflict? Nick?
Well, I'll answer the question if I have any time left over. I actually want to go back to one thing Tony said on the prior answer. But look, I do support those efforts, and I think that at the end of the day, there is a role to play. There's a couple roles that the Assembly and the Senate actually play. Where we choose to invest our money certainly matters, and we've seen the legislature take appropriate action to divest from certain sources. I do think there's a symbolic presence too. In the city of Burbank, in the height of this conflict, we passed a unity statement, which I think is where 90% of the population is. Look, I support Israel, I support the right to defend itself, but I also believe that we need an end to this conflict. We need an immediate mutual ceasefire. We need to return all hostages. We need humanitarian aid in the region. That's my take on it. That's where I think the majority of my constituents are. Last thing I'll say, I think I have a little bit of time remaining. I am going to disagree with you, Tony, on one critical point, going back to rent control. You said it doesn't work. Even if Prop 33 fails, we do have rent control in the form of Assembly Bill 1482, and with all due respect, it can work and it's part of the solution. Here's where people get it wrong. People will pass rent control and they say that's the solution. It's not the solution. The solution is housing. It's supply and demand. It's simple. But oftentimes people pass rent control and they never build the dang housing. That doesn't solve the dang problem. It benefits a few tenants, but it doesn't solve the housing crisis. If we add the housing to meet demand, prices will fall, period. But the question is, what do you do in the 5 to 10 years that it takes to actually construct and get those units of housing online? Rent control is critical, as are eviction protections, to ensure that people are not displaced from communities that they call home. And I'm talking about your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, and your nephews. I'll leave you all with this on this point. Anyone know what the median home sale price in Sherman Oaks is? $1.5 million. I don't know many folks of that age group that can afford that. And that's no one's fault, that's the market. But being able to stay in your apartment, being able to stay in the community that you call home, this is a humanitarian issue. Rent control can work, but it's on policymakers to not lose the forest to the trees. Rent control is a band-aid. What we need to do is stitch the wound, and that's adding housing in a sensible way.
Well, I think, and I don't disagree with you, but I think the reason, and you know why housing costs are high in California. We all know what it takes to build a home in California, right? We know the state has their own impact fees, cities have their own impact fees. All those projects go to union shops, and not that I'm against unions, but as a homeowner, we manage our budget. Actually, my wife manages the budget, right? She decides what we can and we can't do. And if we can't have a union shop do a project because it's too expensive, then we need to go to a non-union construction company and say, hey, can you build this? We got to use common sense. We got to stop the nonsense, because to me it's just a common sense approach. We need to make sure that When we're spending taxpayer dollars, we're doing it intelligently, and we're taking care of the community. We want people to afford housing. I'm with you 100%. I want people to have a place to live. But it's a two-way street, right? I'm gonna give you a great example of a union shop versus a non-union shop. And I'm in construction. If I had an electrician working on a prevailing wage project under a project labor agreement, it cost me between $120 and $140 an hour for that electrician. If I hire a non-union electrician, it's $50 to $60 an hour. I can hire 2 electricians now to get that project going at a cheaper rate, plus the markup that the contractors are going to charge. So there's things we can do in government office just to cut the cost down. So instead of buying an apartment for $800,000, we can get it for $600,000 or $500,000. But we have to use common sense when we do things.
I got to respond to that, though.
Briefly, because I want to get a couple more questions.
Briefly, I'll just say this. I agree that the cost of housing is high. Yes, we should be talking about development impact fees. But I envision a day where people that are building that housing in our community are actually paid a prevailing livable wage where they can afford to maybe buy one of those units. The answer isn't divesting from our workforce. That's crap. We have to bet on people.
Which leads me into one of these questions for you, Nick. This is from one of the members in the audience. According to the Secretary of State's website, you've raised $675,000, and more than $400,000 is from labor unions and their PACs. So how will that impact your legislative priorities?
Well, let me say 2 things. The short answer, and then I'm going to come around to it. The short answer is it's not going to impact it one bit, because I'm going to do what I've done in my entire career. I always do what I think is in the best interest of my constituents or the people of California. That's my job, is to represent your interests in the courtroom, to represent the interests of my community on the dais, and sometimes that means telling your friends no. Just because someone supported you doesn't mean that you owe them anything. The only people I owe anything to is all of you. Now, I will say this. I'm a proud union member. My granddad was a machinist, and it was his union job that's the only reason I'm here. When I was a kid, I mentioned I had a single mom that raised my brother and I. Well, when times were tough in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was often the single mom that got let go from the job because she couldn't work at the office past 5 o'clock. She had to take care of her little boys. So who was there to help our family? My granddad. It was his pension. It was that union job that allowed us to stay afloat, to stay in our home, to have food on the table, that allowed me to go to school, to now give back to my community in this way. Union work's important. I will always stand with working people. There's nothing wrong, no matter what anyone says, for them banding together and just trying to fight for basic fair wages and workplace protections. There's no special interest about that.
What union are you a member of?
CASE is the California State Attorneys, Administrative Law Judges, and Hearings Officers. So it is a statewide union predominantly made up of those who work for California Department of Justice and then other quasi-judicial agencies.
All right, a couple more questions. And I say this with all respect. As a newcomer, why do you feel that you're qualified to be a member of the California State Legislature if you've never done anything like this before?
Well, first of all, I have a common sense approach to life, period. I think that that's what we're lacking in office, and I'm not saying that Nick lacks common sense, but I'm saying that people in leadership positions nowadays don't have common sense. And I don't feel like they have my best interest in mind, or my family, or my city for that matter, when they make decisions. They don't.
What do they have in mind?
Excuse me?
What do they have in mind?
Well, I think a lot of people get attached to certain organizations and try to help them. Look, I'm looking to help 90% of the population. I can't help everybody because we can't, right? But I want to help as many people as I can. And with a common sense approach and sensibility, I think I can do that. And also, I really feel that we need to heal the divide. I truly believe that. That's not something that, I've been married 44 years. There's no way in hell I could have been married 44 years if we didn't compromise about things in life, right? You gotta compromise, regardless of party line, regardless of whether I like Laura Friedman or not. It doesn't matter. We need to shake hands and do what's best for Sherman Oaks, Studio City, my city, Sunlight to Hunger for sure, Burbank. But we don't do a good job of that. And I don't understand why we just can't talk. And those meetings that you're talking about, that they're open to the public, yeah, they're open to the public, but then they start taking the microphones away from people. And that kind of childish attitude has to stop at the state legislature. And I'm going to stop that. I'm definitely going to stop it.
I'll keep it to 30 seconds, but since he sort of referred to me, I want to address that. You know what? It's unfair to expect people to come down to City Hall or come to the legislature to be heard. We have to be out in the community. So I'm going to do the exact same thing I have done as mayor and a council member of Burbank. I'll have regular town halls, community coffees. I will come to you. Because that's where you're going to feel comfortable to share your ideas with me. That's my commitment to all of you, to be accessible. Not to go to the state capitol and come back every 2 years when I'm asking for your vote, but to be present in this district. And not just my deputies, but me. That's a commitment you can take to the bank.
All right, last question, and then we'll have closing statement. Just from taking this all in and taking a step back, it sounds like you two are in agreement on a lot, philosophically, as well as in some specifics. So let me start with you, Tony. How would Sherman Oaks be served differently if it was Assemblymember Rodriguez versus Schultz?
Well, I'll go back to my Army days. I am a ground soldier. I'm on the ground. I don't believe in being at we call it headquarters, or whatever you want to call it, or rear with the gear. I'm going to be on the ground. And everything I've said to anybody that I've talked to when they open the door is, I will be here. I will be the one. You would be surprised how many people I've knocked on doors and like, you're the candidate? You're actually knocking on my door? Yeah, I'm the candidate. I'm knocking on your door. And I'm not going to stop that. I'm not going to stop that because I truly believe that what we're missing is the human touch. We're missing the human touch. We've forgotten about family values, right? No, it seems like nobody cares about the local family. Family values are the most important thing. This country was developed on family values. And I'm going to continue that because I got 2 granddaughters that I got to show them that when grandpa or opa says something, he means it. He's going to go out there. I will have meetings. I will be down here. I'm not going to be sitting in the Puzzle Palace waiting for you to call me or send me an email. And I'll be, just like my campaign, if you look at my flyer, that is my personal phone number. That's not a campaign manager. That's not a staff member. That's me who answers that phone.
Nick, how would the people of Sherman Oaks be benefited if it was you versus Tony?
Sure. So I think that Tony and I probably agree on 50, 60, 70%. You're right, there's a lot of common ground. We have very different visions of how to get there, but this is good, this is healthy dialogue. Here's what I would say. In me, you're getting someone who's battle-tested and experienced and understands all the obstacles to getting good policy done. One of us was elected at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, with small businesses shut down, a structural recurring deficit of $12 million, and I turned that around in 24 months. City of Burbank's budget is now in surplus. That's going to be important. That's going to be my #1 course of business when I get elected, because we can't do any of these other big issues that we want to talk about unless we rein in and get a handle on the state budget. That's #1. And then after that, I'm going to get to work, because at the end of the day, look, you may have candidates that you like, you may have candidates that you believe in, but this is a results-oriented business. All that matters is we actually get things done to improve quality of life for you. So I'm going to take that success we've had in Burbank in driving down homelessness, and I'm going to make that happen across this district. I'm going to add more affordable units of housing, truly affordable units of housing. I'm going to invest in public education by allowing our public schools to be funded based on enrollment as opposed to average daily attendance, and actually set them up for success. And I'm going to tackle the climate crisis head on. What you're getting in me is not just someone who has a lot of great ideas of what I want to do, but I know how to get it done. And I'm relentless in getting those things done.
Well, that brings us to our closing arguments, I guess, if we were in a court of law. You were sort of on a roll there. Do you want to just segue right into yours first?
Sure, absolutely. So look, Tony, I want to thank you for the...
About 1 minute or so.
1 minute, that's all I need. I want to thank you, Tony. I want to thank SOHA for putting this together. My name is Nick Schultz, and I am running to be your next state assembly member. I'm proudly endorsed by the California Democratic Party, California Professional Firefighters, California Environmental Voters, Sierra Club of California, yes, a lot of labor, and pretty much anyone who's weighed in this race to make an endorsement just about. But here's the only thing I want you to know. I owe you everything if I'm elected to this position. I understand the charge of what you're entrusting with me. Whether you vote for me or not, I am going to owe you accessibility. I'm going to owe you my complete focus and attention, and I'm going to give it everything that I got. That's exactly what I've done my entire career as a prosecutor at DOJ, as a deputy district attorney before that, and as mayor of Burbank, because you deserve absolutely nothing less. I would be honored and grateful to earn your vote, and I thank you for your consideration.
So, obviously, my name is Tony Rodriguez, and my proudest thing is my grandkids. So I want to start off with that. But I want to say something that Nick alluded to, that he's the only one that was elected for office during the high of the COVID. And he's right, he is. I'm not a politician by any means. But that doesn't make him a better leader. And what we need is people that lead the way. And just because you were elected during the high of the COVID doesn't make you a better leader than anybody else. So he's right. He was elected, not I was. But I'm not going to hold his youth against him either. Right? So, look, I just have a common sense approach to life. Right? That's how I deal with my family. I deal with my friends. I've met some incredible people. I spent a lot of time in Sherman Oaks. I didn't come here very often. I love this city, and I'll be here this weekend again. So hopefully you'll consider voting for me this upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for running for office. Thank you for your time here. Thanks. Let's hear it for Phil Schuman, everybody. Also, before you leave, if you're hungry, there's some extras. You guys can go and grab it and take it to go. Also, next month, you guys, please mark your calendar. Karen Bass will be our speaker, so it's going to be a full house. Come early, come hungry. It's the third Wednesday. I have no idea what the date is. It's always the third Wednesday. It's the 20th of whatever month next month is, November, the week before Thanksgiving. Also, because Jules isn't here with us tonight, please clean up your places because otherwise I will be doing it. Thank you very much, guys.